my wife said, I don't cook for the family. After 10 years bringing dinner every night from the restaurant. So I stopped bringing food only for her and made her get her own dinner for 2 weeks until she finally recognized my effort. I'm 35 years old, work as a cook at an Italian restaurant, and honestly, I never thought something as simple as bringing food home every night was going to become the center of such a stupid, yet important marital conflict. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. Like, since before my son Samuel was born, who's now 8, and my daughter Victoria, who's 6. The routine has always been the same. I work from 2 in the afternoon to 11 at night, give or take, and when I finish my shift, I go through the kitchen, put together 3 plates with whatever's good that day, pasta, chicken, marsala, salads, whatever, and I go home. By the time I get there, it's like 11:30, midnight, and my wife Angela and the kids wait for me so we can have dinner together. It's our thing, our family moment at the end of the day, and for years it worked perfectly. Angela handles breakfast and lunch during the week, I bring dinner, and on weekends, we cook together or order something different. I guess we never saw it as weird or like I was making some huge sacrifice. It was just what worked for us. I work at a restaurant. I have access to incredible food every day. Why wouldn't I take advantage of that for my family? Plus, I like doing it. I like seeing the kids' faces when I bring them their favorite dishes. I like that Angela doesn't have to worry about dinner after being with the kids all day when they were younger, or now that she works part-time from home. It's never felt like a burden to me, honestly. It was just part of our life. The problem started like 2 months ago, on a Friday night. Angela had invited her friend Stacy over to drink wine at the house, like a girls' night type thing, and I arrived as always around 11:30 with the food. Stacy is divorced. She's like 40 years old, and she's always talking about how useless her ex-husband was, like he never helped around the house, never cooked, basically was a lump on the couch, according to how she tells it. It's not that I dislike Stacy, but sometimes her comments are a bit intense, you know what I mean? Like she relates everything to her failed marriage and how all men are lazy, or whatever. So, that Friday I arrived with the food, said hello, and went straight to the kitchen to put the plates in the fridge because the kids were already asleep, and Angela was obviously going to eat later with her friend. I put the food there, poured myself a glass of water, and was about to go shower when I heard Stacy ask Angela from the living room, "Hey, but does Brian cook at home or only at the restaurant?" And I just stood there in the kitchen because, I don't know, something in her tone made me curious to hear the answer. And Angela laughed, like that laugh you do when you're with friends and want to be funny, and said, "Oh no, Brian doesn't cook here. He only cooks at work. He doesn't do any of that here." And Stacy laughed too and said something like, "Of course. Typical. At work they're professional. Chefs, but at home they can't even make an egg." And they both laughed more. I stood there with the glass of water in my hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Seriously? She seriously just said that? I bring food to this house literally every single day, 365 days a year. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and she basically just said, I don't cook for the family. I mean, technically she's right that I don't cook right there in our kitchen, but bringing prepared food from the restaurant is basically the same thing, isn't it? It's food that I made, with my hands, at my workplace, specifically for my family. But in that moment I realized that for her, or at least for what she was telling Stacy, that didn't count as cooking. I didn't say anything that night. I went to the bedroom, showered, and when Angela came up like an hour later, I was already in bed looking at my phone. She got into bed, gave me a kiss on the cheek like always, and fell asleep. I stayed awake until like 3 in the morning, turning the whole thing over in my head. On one hand, I thought, well, maybe it was just an unimportant comment. Maybe she was just trying to relate to Stacy and her complaints about her ex. But on the other hand, I felt genuinely hurt, you know? Like all that effort over all these years, making sure there was always good food in the house, thinking about what everyone would like, saving special portions when there was something particularly good on the menu. All of that just didn't exist for her, or at least not enough to mention it when her friend was basically grouping me with lazy husbands. The next morning, Saturday, I waited until the kids were watching cartoons in the living room and told Angela we needed to talk. I told her what I'd heard and said it had bothered me. She immediately got defensive. Like, "Oh my God, Brian, it was just a joke. Don't take it so seriously. Stacy was talking about her ex and I was just being nice." I said, "No, Angela, it wasn't a joke. You basically said, 'I don't cook for the family when you know perfectly well I bring food every day.'" She looked at me like I was being ridiculous and said, "Well, but it's not the same as cooking here at home, is it? It's food from the restaurant." And I said, "Food that I prepare, specifically for you guys. How is it not the same?" And she just sighed and said, "Look, I don't want to fight about this. It was an unimportant comment. Just get over it. Just get over it." Those words bothered me more than everything else, honestly. Because it wasn't just the comment, it was the fact that she clearly didn't see my effort as something worth recognizing or defending. I dropped the subject that day, but I was in a bad mood all weekend. Sunday night, before leaving for work, I tried to talk to her again. I said, "Look, I know you think I'm overreacting, but it really hurt me that you didn't acknowledge what I do for the family in front of your friend." She looked at me and said, "Brian, you bring food home. It's not like you're doing something extraordinary. Lots of families eat takeout." And that's when something broke inside me. Not in a dramatic way or anything, but I made a decision. I told her, "Okay, Angela, you're right. It's nothing extraordinary. So from now on, I'm not going to bring dinner home for you. I'll keep bringing food for Samuel and Victoria because they do appreciate it, but you can get your own dinner." She just stood there staring at me like I'd lost my mind and said, "What? Are you seriously going to do this? You're going to punish me for a comment?" I said, "I'm not punishing you. I'm just stopping doing something that apparently isn't important or worth mentioning." I grabbed my keys and left for work. That night, when I got home around midnight, I brought only 2 plates, kid portions of fettuccine, Alfredo, and chicken parmesan. I put them in the fridge with little notes that said Samuel and Victoria. Angela was awake in the living room. Watching TV, she saw me put away the food, didn't say anything, and I went straight to the bedroom. The next day, Monday, the kids had breakfast normally. Angela gave them lunch, and when I arrived at night, I again only brought food for the kids. Angela had ordered something from Uber Eats. I saw it on the table. She looked at me like, "Are you seriously going to keep this up?" And I just said, "You said it wasn't important, so it shouldn't be a problem." This continued all week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I brought food only for Samuel and Victoria, and Angela had to get her own dinner. At first, she kind of took it as a challenge, like, "Fine, I can make my own food, it's not a big deal." But by Wednesday, I could tell she was frustrated. Thursday night, after I put the kids to bed, she confronted me in the kitchen. She said, "This is ridiculous, Brian. How long are you going to keep up this childish attitude?" I said, "It's not an attitude. I'm simply respecting your perspective, that what I do isn't cooking and isn't important." She said, "I never said it wasn't important. I said it wasn't the same as cooking at home." I said, "And that's exactly the point, Angela. For you, it doesn't count. So why do it?" The tension in the house was horrible. The kids obviously noticed something was going on but didn't understand what. Samuel, my 8-year-old son, is super observant, and Friday night he asked me, "Dad, why don't you bring food for Mom anymore, only for me and Vicky?" That question hurt because I realized the kids were in the middle of this now. I said something like, "Mom and I have a disagreement about something, Champ, but it's nothing to worry about." But he looked at me with those serious eyes he gets sometimes and said, "But you always bring food for everyone. Did Mom do something bad?" And I didn't know what to answer without getting them more involved in the problem, so I just told him that adults sometimes have to work things out and gave him a hug. Saturday. Angela was clearly very upset. She avoided me most of the day, and I was honestly starting to wonder if I wasn't taking this too far. But at the same time, I felt that if I gave in now, without her really understanding why I was upset, nothing was going to change. Sunday afternoon, while the kids were outside playing in the yard, Angela sat down across from me at the dining table and said, "Okay, I'm sorry. Okay? Can we end this?" But the way she said it didn't sound sincere at all. It sounded more like, "I'm going to tell you what you want to hear so things can go back to normal." I said, "Angela, I don't want you to say you're sorry just to end this. I want you to genuinely understand why what you said bothered me." She sighed really loudly and said, "Brian, I understand it bothered you, but honestly, I still think you're overreacting. It was a stupid comment I made to fit in with Stacy. It wasn't a personal attack on you." I said, "But that's the problem, don't you see? That you were willing to belittle what I do every day just to fit in with your friend. That when you had the chance to say, well, actually, Brian brings food from the restaurant every day for us, you chose instead to group me with husbands who don't do anything." She was quiet for a moment and then said, "You're right. I should have defended you. I should have said something different. I'm sorry." This time it sounded a bit more genuine, but I still felt she wasn't completely getting the point. I said, "It's not just about defending me in front of Stacy. It's about you recognizing and valuing what I do. It's not just food, Angela. It's my way of taking care of the family after working 9-hour shifts. It's my way of making sure the kids have varied and nutritious meals. It's part of how I contribute to this household. And when you minimize that, it makes me feel like nothing I do matters." She had tears in her eyes at that point and said, "It matters, Brian. Of course it matters. I'm an idiot for saying that. Please, can we just go back to normal?" On Monday, I resumed the routine of bringing food. For everyone. That night when I arrived, Angela was waiting up for me, and when I put the 3 plates on the table, because I decided we were going to eat together instead of just storing it, she hugged me and said, "Thank you." And this time it felt real. The 3 of us ate together, the kids were already asleep, and it was the first night in 2 weeks where things felt kind of normal again. But the real test came like 3 weeks later. Stacy came to visit again on a Saturday afternoon. This time, I was home because it was my day off. We were all in the living room. I was playing with the kids on the floor, and Stacy was telling Angela about her new boyfriend or whatever. At some point, the conversation drifted toward food, and Stacy made another comment, like, "I bet Brian never cooks at home. Chefs never want to cook after work. My ex didn't even know where the stove was." And I felt my stomach tighten, waiting to see what Angela was going to say. And Angela, my wife, looked at me for a second and then told Stacy, "Actually, Stacy, Brian brings food from the restaurant for us every day. Every single day for almost 10 years. He makes our favorite meals, makes sure the kids have healthy options, and it's one of the main ways he takes care of this family. So no, he doesn't cook here on the stove, but he definitely cooks for us." I was there on the floor with a toy dinosaur in my hand, trying not to smile like an idiot. Stacy kind of looked surprised and said, "Oh, wow, that's great. Sorry for assuming," and then changed the subject. After Stacy left that afternoon, Angela came looking for me in the bedroom where I was folding laundry. She said, "I know you probably expected me to say something like that weeks ago, and I'm sorry I didn't do it earlier. I let myself be influenced by Stacy and her stories about her ex, and I think subconsciously I wanted to kind of relate to her about how hard it is to be married. But the truth is, you're nothing like her ex at all. You show up every day, literally and figuratively." I said, "Thank you for saying that, and for telling Stacy the truth today. It meant a lot," she said. "I should have done it from the beginning, and I promise from now on I'm going to be better at recognizing the things you do." And the thing is, she really has been. Like a week after that, she surprised me by making an elaborate dinner at home on a Saturday, like pasta from scratch, homemade sauce, the whole thing. And when I asked her what was going on, she said, "I want you to know I appreciate everything you do, and I thought I could return the favor for one night." It was sweet. And the food was actually pretty good, honestly. Though obviously I was going to tell her that, even if it wasn't. Looking back, I think the whole conflict was necessary in a way. Not because I wanted to punish Angela or prove a point, but because it forced us to have a real conversation about appreciation and recognition in our marriage. It's easy to fall into routines and take for granted what your partner does every day, especially when it's something that's been happening for so long it becomes invisible. For Angela, the food just appeared every night, and I think she stopped consciously thinking about the effort behind it. And I, for my part, probably should have communicated earlier how much it meant to me for her to acknowledge that effort instead of letting it build up until it exploded. The kids are happy. Things went back to normal. Though Samuel still occasionally asks me if Mom is going to have food tonight, like making a joke out of it now. And Angela has been much better at expressing gratitude for the little things, not just the food, but other things too. I've also tried to be better at recognizing everything she does, all the meals she prepares during the day, all the invisible work of keeping the house running. Last week we were having dinner together, all four of us, and Victoria, my 6-year-old daughter, said out of nowhere, "Daddy makes the best food in the world." And Angela looked at me and said, "Yes, sweetie, he definitely does." And she smiled, and I smiled, and Samuel rolled his eyes because he's 8, and he's already at that stage where everything we adults do is embarrassing. But in that moment I realized we were okay, that we'd gotten through that stupid thing and came out stronger on the other side. Was it over the top to stop bringing her food for 2 weeks? Maybe. Could I have handled it differently? Probably. But in the end, I think we both needed that wake-up call to remember that marriage requires you to show up for each other, not just physically, but also verbally, especially in front of other people. You can't expect your partner to guess that you appreciate what they do if you never say it out loud, and you definitely can't belittle their contributions to fit in with your friends and then wonder why they got upset. I still bring food home every night. We still eat together when my schedule allows it, and Angela still handles breakfast and lunch. The difference now is that we're both more conscious about saying thank you, about acknowledging each other's effort, about not letting things become invisible just because they're routine. And honestly, that makes all the difference in the world.